Thank you for joining me on the Just Talk with Rachel Nekati. And today we are continuing on the repercussions or the consequences of not aligning your goals with your values. We have so far discussed quite a number of the consequences. We've discussed A for anger, B for blame, C for criticism, D for despair, E for envy, F for frustration, and now we are going to talk about G for guilt. As you might have learned in the past videos, when we fail to align our values with our goals, we will not be happy. We will not feel satisfaction. We will not be joyful of our life. We will just exist and feel disgruntled and just not have the positive energy and the willingness to go on. However, let's talk about guilt. What is guilt? Guilt is normally something you feel when you have not done something which is aligned with your wants or needs. You will feel guilty if you feel that you have compromised yourself. If you feel that the results that you are getting do not really reflect your capability. This normally happens when we fail to listen to who we are, when we fail to do what makes us happy, when we fail to make ourselves a priority and we decide to go with the expectations of other people whilst compromising our true inner desire. What we've been discussing on this determine your values and align them with your goals, we've been all the time identifying that which makes you you. What does your pattern of behavior, what does your lifestyle, what does your way of living depicts in terms of what you value most? How then can you avoid this negative emotion of guilt? Well, we are going to discuss 5 ways in which we can manage guilt. Firstly, you need to identify that feeling. You need to be aware of yourself. You need to get into your inner world and assess that particular feeling. And once you've identified that indeed you are feeling guilty, you need to acknowledge it. That's step number 2. Acknowledge the fact that the way you feel is the way you feel. It's counterproductive to argue with the way you feel. You are feeling guilty. You've identified that you are experiencing a strong emotion of guilt. And now you need to acknowledge it to say, yes, this is how I feel. That's step number 2. Step number 3, design a plan of how you want to feel. Set realistic expectations. What is it that has made you feel guilty? And now, how can you change it? Because feeling guilty and moving along as if everything is okay without acknowledging it, without identifying it, you will not be able to move to the 3rd step of setting realistic expectations. More often, some people feel guilty because their original plan was unrealistic. Their original expectations were unrealistic. What is it that you expect from yourself? Even when you've got certain expectations, understand that you are a human being. You are going to have times where you go off track, and you are going to have times when you are going to be on track. And if you are going off track, you don't need to crucify yourself. You need to identify what are the reasons why I've gone off track and come up with a realistic plan to come back on track. That's what setting realistic expectations is about. Because sometimes we set things that do not really look realistic. And if we set unrealistic expectations, if we've got unrealistic expectations of ourselves, of our capabilities, we are setting ourselves for failure. Step number 4, have self-compassion. Have self-forgiveness. More often, we show compassion to other people. We forgive other people. We help other people. However, when it comes to ourselves, we become very unrealistic. We become so unreasonable. We become intolerant. Even when we make mistakes, we do not appreciate the fact that we did our best with whatever information we had. So self-compassion is basically acknowledging that you are a human being. To err is human. Is understanding that you did your best based on the circumstances. You did your best based on what you knew then. And should you have known better, you could have done better. So have self-compassion. Last but not least, make and keep promises with yourself. You have identified, you have acknowledged, you know what it is that you have done. When you now come up with a plan to rectify, when you now come up with a plan to move forward, set that plan down. Write it down. Stick with your plan. That is a promise. Look at your plan as a promise to yourself. And you now need to ensure that you keep promises that you have set with yourself. Most people are good at setting goals. Most people are good at coming up with intentions. Getting that plan to work is where the challenge is. Executing, then you start feeling guilty. You are promising yourself that you will go and exercise 3 times a week, or you are going to exercise today at 8 o'clock in the morning or at 5 o'clock in the morning. When you see yourself lying in bed, know that you are not keeping a promise with yourself. When you see yourself not doing that which you have promised to yourself that you are going to do, know that you are setting yourself on a guilt trip. So, learn to set promises and learn to honor those promises. No one is going to rescue you. No one is going to keep your promise. You need to make yourself a priority and everything else an option. This is what we talk about at our Determine Your Values and Align Them with Your Goals. Because once you have identified your values, will you then be in a position to set your goals which are aligned with your values and come up with commitments? That is where now we design daily commitments which you are going to use as a yardstick. Because when you've got commitments, you will use the commitments as an assessment tool to ask yourself daily, what have I done today which is taking me closer or away from my goals? Without commitments, without intentions, without those things that are going to prompt you to keep promises with yourself, you are going to feel guilty. When you see others succeeding, when you see others achieving their goals, you are going to feel guilty. So I think this is the time to say goodbye to guilt. This is the time to set ourselves for success. This is the time to live an authentic, value-driven life. Please click the link below so that you can understand more about our monthly Determine Your Value webinar. This is a group coaching session where it's only 4 hours. I help people through a methodology to identify their true values. not to adopt society expectations, but to understand from their way of life, from their patterns of behavior, from their interests as to what they value most. And after understanding your values, will you be in a position to set your goals? And once you have set your goals, which are aligned with your values, you don't need somebody to motivate you, because you are going to be inspired from within. That is what I do as a life coach. My role is to help people become the best version of themselves. Please, if you have not done so, share this video with at least 5 people so that we can help others become the best version of themselves as we help one person one day at a time. Thank you for spending time with me. My name is Rachel Nekati, and I am your personal and professional coach. I am a cognitive behavioral life coach. I hope to see you in my next sessions.